play.
This is Let Your Voice Be Heard right here on WHCR 90.3 FM, the voice of Harlem.
I want to talk about black people getting shot. And the reason why is because, yes, I know it's Sunday, so of course they take a break until 2 o'clock for shooting black people for no reason.
It's not Tuesday or Thursday.
Yes, last week, Saturday, I think it was, a man by the name of Walter Scott was shot 8 times by a police officer in South Carolina.
8 times?
8 times.
In the back.
In the back. So when it first came out, the report was that there was a struggle for the cop's taser. The cop feared for his life, and then he had to shoot Walter Scott. But then, from some magical Negro power, a video came out, and it shows Walter Scott not only not attacking the cop, not only not going for his taser, but running away from the officer.
Running.
Now, let me address the law behind that for people who are wondering. So there's a Supreme Court case that sets out the standard for when a police officer can use deadly force against somebody who's fleeing. It's called the fleeing felon rule. First off, the person has to be wanted, or there has to be probable cause to believe that the person committed a felony. Not that they owe child support, not that there's a warrant out because they owe child support, not because they committed a traffic infraction, a felony. And 2, the person has to the fleeing felon, as it's known, has to pose an imminent threat of harm to either the officer or to others. So if a fleeing felon is running with a gun and open spraying, firing into a crowd, then an officer might have the right to shoot them in the back to stop them from shooting 30 people that are in a crowd in front of them. But when there's an unarmed man who is not even wanted for a felony.
Who's unarmed.
Who's unarmed, first off. He's running away from the police, second off. He's not looking to cause harm towards anybody who he's running towards, third off, and he's not wanted for a felony. He's stopped for a traffic infraction, and he may have a warrant, but that warrant is for back child support, not for any violent felony or even any nonviolent felony. That, under the rule, under the constitutional law, would not give any police officer any right to shoot him.
Right. No, none at all. And
1 second, it gets juicier. I'm sorry about that. So after he shot him, not all 8 bullets hit the guy. 4 bullets hit him, 1 in the buttocks, 1 behind the right ear, 1 in the cheek, 1 in the heart. So he shot him. Walter Scott falls to the floor dead, and the cop goes, picks up his taser, walks over, drops it next to Walter Scott, sprinkles some crack on his nose, and says, I was defending myself.
And no, but the part that really got me,
handcuffed him.
But he
so he didn't sprinkle crack on his
yelled.
nose.
That was the first time we actually heard audio of him yelling a command, and it was "Put your hands behind your back." After he shot at him 8 times, knowing that he hit him, knowing that he dropped. I mean, to be so incompassionate and so inhumane. I don't know if you guys saw the raw footage of the stop. I mean, a lot of people were arguing. You know what? This cop was very professional. His mom even came out saying he's a great person. The way that he approached Walter Scott was very professional, very calm, very nice. Something had to happen, which either ticked him off or sent him to this next level in which he shot the man.
And that's the whole problem, though, is if you are a police officer, you have to be able to remain cool and calm in contentious situations. You can't just, even if the person you stop is escalating the situation, and I have a friend who I will not mention by name, but he's a sergeant in the New York City Police Department, and he is what I would consider to be a model police officer. In fact, I think they should use him to train other police officers in this city because he understands these things, and he is very good at remaining calm, and him and I talk a lot about how police officers, if they can't remain calm and not let situations escalate, then they need to be retrained because that's not proper. And he and I were talking about this situation before Walter Scott, just in the past, about we haven't directly spoke about this, and he said a big problem with officers is that they all too often they let their own emotions take hold of them, and he said we need to have better also screening from the beginning about officers and whether or not they can keep their cool in contentious situations.
And they need to be continually tested, psychological testing, because think about it, how traumatic is it to be a police officer where you're handling murder scenes, investigations, and you're constantly looking for, trying to stop crime if that's what you're supposed to do.
I think that they should, have increased services, if they wanted to see a therapist or talk about...
No, I mean, if you don't pass that test, they should take your gun away.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
I have a better idea. How about we put police through trainings or some conversations where they stop perceiving African Americans as people who are going to rob and kill you because they're running away from you.
You know what?
Or because I've had situations where cops have escalated with me and I've done nothing.
Right.
It's funny because I actually got into an argument with someone of color, a black person, who was like, before all the details came out, they were like, well, you know what? There's a 50% chance that that man in the video, before we knew his name was Walter Scott, did something wrong. And I was like, where do you get that statistic from? And they were like, well, think about it. Like, let's think about all this crime going on. And it just goes to show that a lot of people in this country, black and white, have this perception of black men as being automatically guilty, and it makes it that much easier to either lynch.
He said a 50% chance. Like, it is, if you're getting stopped by a cop, there is a 50%
no,
chance.
I mean, so running, like he was running away.
Well, yes, if you ran away, that's also.
Well, I don't know, because like even the people that are completely compliant, like, I mean, I know Trayvon Martin wasn't killed by a cop, but you have situations like Trayvon Martin. You have situations where police officers, there's video of a police officer shooting a black guy as he's trying to give him his ID and being completely compliant. So I don't take that. Right. I don't take that perception.
I obviously can't go into many details about a lot of my cases. If you don't know, for background, I'm a civil rights attorney, so I sue the city on behalf of people who have had their rights violated by the NYPD. Most of this manifests itself in false arrests. Somebody is arrested for a crime they did not commit. They go through the system for 24 hours, and then either the DA's office declines to prosecute the arrest, or their case is dismissed outright after right from the beginning, and sometimes after several court appearances. But I can't tell you how many times I get a partial video or a somewhat video where it's not my client who's escalating the situation. It's the police that are escalating the situation. In fact, at one point on one of these videos I have, an officer can be, I'm not talking about just generally speaking, but, I have clients that are like, well, what do you want me to do? Are you saying my left pocket, my right? Like, what's the deal? Because they don't want to make a move that may, they're like, and in some cases they're like, I don't even want to go into my pocket to get my ID. You're telling me to get my ID, but then as soon as I reach to get the ID, like, you're like, put your hand up, and they're like, didn't you just ask me for my ID?
Yeah, right. They don't want to make
and it's like,
move.
You don't want to let the police put their hands in your pocket, because then you could be technically consenting to a search and giving up your right to be free from a search. But it's this like contentious situation, and it goes back to training. And I know the NYPD is sort of having a retraining, and there's some questions as to whether or not there's an efficacy of that. But there's also the issue of broken windows policing and the stopping, and we saw that in the Ferguson report about municipal violations and who's getting stopped for them. And stuff like so. There's a lot of different issues that come down to it. But
I just wanted to make the point too, to address what you said, Selena, that it doesn't matter if he had done something wrong or not, right? And this is something that we talked a lot about, especially after what happened in Ferguson, where there was videotapes of Mike Brown, maybe like shoplifting from a store. It doesn't matter if he had done something wrong to have the police approach him in the first place. The fact is that white people commit crimes too. They're, approached by cops, but so often we see these black men and black women shot and killed and strangled to death, and just because you're approaching someone with different color skin than yours doesn't mean that you have the license to kill them, right? We don't see this happen in the same way to white bodies that we do.
It's not even statistically, and I just wanted to add on, this is not an example of just a bad call by a police officer, which a lot of police officers and the unions are trying to make it seem like it's just a bad call. No, this plays into a larger systematic issue in this country.
How many times, do you think this is the first time this has ever happened where a cop shot someone and all of a sudden a struggle happened magically?
No.
I highly doubt it. But we do have to close this out, guys. This is a very emotional topic, a very fired up topic. So, we actually continue the conversation on Twitter and on our Facebook page and on Politically Preposterous, because we do want to hear your thoughts. But we have to go on to another segment that's very, very important. And in case you have not been paying attention to the news, there was an attack in Kenya, and we're going to tell you guys all about that in the next couple of minutes. This is Let Your Voice Be Heard. We'll be right back.